All right, welcome to our course. I'm Orland Wetzker. I'm with Transcend Innovations. Transcend Innovations is one of the sponsors for Tech Tank Ogden. We're pleased to be able to bring this to the Ogden community and try and accelerate the economic development here. Today's our Transcend Innovations is a product development company which we focus specifically on a turnkey product development company that allows you to take your concepts and turn those concepts into reality, get those concepts out on the market. Our focus is specifically on embedded systems, which is another way for saying little itty bitty tiny computers that do stuff that we can program and make them do whatever you want to do to make things smart. We seem to like to be able to interact with the things around us, both wirelessly wired, make them do things, make them jump, listen to our commands, all those good things, and we help bring those things together. So today's course is going to be on finding your market. We're going to talk a little bit about market research basics. Now, market research is something which is a huge topic and can cover a wide range of things. What we want to do is kind of narrow down what we're going to talk about today. And today's course is really going to be focused on the entrepreneur and how the entrepreneur can take and utilize market research to help them find the best product for their customer before they invest a lot of dollars into that particular product. So, any questions before we get started? All right. Let me see. So, market research. Market research is typically about asking the question of who wants to buy your product. So, the market is this generic term for this idea that things are bought and sold somewhere. It used to be that you would go to a market, a physical location, and you would buy things, and that's what the market used to be. Now the market has become bigger and bigger and bigger. Basically, anywhere you're at, you're in the market. You can pull out your phone, you can buy things online, we can exchange things in a variety of different manners. So the question is, when you have a product, who wants to buy it? The other question is, who is competing with your product? So when you're looking at the market, one of the things we often want to know is who else is out there selling things that are very similar. That's often something that we do in a way to judge whether or not our product is going to be a good product. The next thing is, how big is that potential market? So when you go out and when you look at the market that's available, is it a big market that you're going to run into or a small market? So those things are pretty intuitive when you think about market research. It's really about pulling those things together. Now, when we traditionally think about market research, and I think this is what scares most people when they think about market research, is that what you're trying to do is it's like you're going out and you're trying to find these numbers. You know, what are these numbers that are out there? You know, how big is my market? That seems like a really big and hard number to go out and find. And you're trying to figure out, well, who else is out there? It just seems like market research is this big nebulous, what is this going to be? And for some people it is. You know, for some people, market research is is really diving into that. But for the entrepreneur, that type of research may not be the best time spent for you. You have a limited time that's out there. What you're trying to get at is something a little bit different. But just to understand your traditional market research, what's typically going to happen is you're going to say, my product that I've envisioned fits into this category. You know, so if I'm selling a ball, you know, that ball fits under the category of sporting goods. You know, I'm now selling, so how big is the sporting goods market? Well, within that market of sporting goods, there's some sort of sub-market that's in there, which would be balls, the different types of balls that are being sold for different types of games. And then there might be even another subcategory, which is baseballs. How many people are selling just baseballs? Okay, so there's this way of categorizing and subcategorizing our products and figuring out what those markets look like. And you can then start saying, well, who else is selling balls? And how much of the market do they have? So then you have to come up with this weird number, which is, all right, how does my ball compare to their balls, and how much of that market am I going to get when I make that happen? And so you'll often see in your reports people showing these diagrams where they have, here's the big market, here's the subcategory, and here's my market, and that's to illustrate, and they'll often throw numbers against there and say, well, the big product category is $2 billion, and then the subcategory is $100 million, and we think we're going to get $10 million out of it. So if you look at investor pitches and that sort of thing, that is the type of market research that they'll often pull out for you. And that is primarily to make the investor feel good that there is opportunity in this for them in the long run. You know, nobody wants to put $10 million into a market that is going to yield $20 million out of it. You know, I mean, the economics just don't make sense. You want to see that continual growth. Okay, so that is traditional market research, and that is not what we are going to talk about today. Okay, and why we're not going to talk about that is really that there's some serious limitations to that from the new product perspective. Okay, when you have a new concept, you have a new product concept that you're trying to put out, you may not know what the product category is. How do you categorize it? Maybe it's something in an area that nobody's doing anything in. So what are you going to do? Which market are you going to put yourself in? And the other thing, and this is something that people know, but it's that if you're introducing something that's new, something that's disruptive, something that is going to have an impact on the market, what you could see is that market then grows. You know, when Apple first came out with the personal computer, the market was tiny. Okay, and you could have looked at that and said, oh, well, there's no market for that, I don't want to invest, because I don't see that category is yielding any significant shares right now. But what happened is that market just grew and grew and grew and grew and grew to the personal computer market. Now, personal computers being an interesting category for us as a company, what are we seeing right now? If you're looking just at personal computers, you're actually seeing that sales of personal computers are going down. And it's why are sales of personal computers going down? Well, it's because we now use computers in different ways. We now have more task-oriented personal computers. We also have mobile phones. Mobile phone growth is continuing to expand. And what we'll probably see is that the actual computer market, if you look at it from a chip perspective, is continuing to grow exponentially, where the actual application of personal computers is going down. So anyway, we as entrepreneurs, we want to be forward thinking because our ideas can push markets to grow. They can make market segments increase, and so what we don't really want to do that. The other thing is that you can say, hey, look, here's all the competitors in this space, here's my product, and then make this correlation which says my product is going to get X percentage of that market. And we can delude ourselves as entrepreneurs into thinking that just because I have a comparable product means that I'm going to get a certain amount of market share. The only way you're going to know what that's going to look like is by actually getting customer feedback on your product. So it's not just enough to compare what somebody else is doing and try and make that comparison in your own brain, because your own brain is going to be very biased towards your product, and you're going to miss what the customer actually thinks about your product. So we're going to talk about a different type of market research, which is going to be much more focused on helping the entrepreneur get a better sense of what the market looks like for their particular product, because they're talking to their particular customers. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Any questions so far about market research? Is there anything about market research that you've wondered about, that you have a question, or terms, or something that I may not have covered as of yet?
Well, it makes sense about how traditional market research isn't really a good fit when you're creating a new product, because they're just taking a pie, they're slicing it, and want to get you bits of the pie. Whereas with a new concept, you're saying, well, just make more pie. And so there's not that thing on there. But if all your investors are looking for that slice of the pie model, how do you get concrete enough numbers to say that, yes, this is a new pie, but it's going to be delicious?
So we're going to talk a little bit about the market research that you should be doing at this stage of your product, and let's say the stage that we're talking about is when you're still in the concept phase of your product. Okay, if you are now at the point where you have developed your product is out in the market, and you are looking for additional funding, then you're at a spot where you need to have these other market research numbers to show to investors, because the things that we're going to talk about today, investors are very interested in the results of this, but they may not like the format that we're going to use to keep ourselves organized. Okay, so I actually know, working with some investors, that what I said is actually just true. They want to know about this research that we're going to talk about, but they do want to see the traditional piece of the pie market, or they want to see that compelling evidence that says there's no market today, but we're going to grow a market, and I know that we're going to grow a market because of this confidence. Does that speak to your question? All right, so what is the market research that matters? The market research that really matters is answering these 5 questions, which is, who is your product's customer? Okay. Now, let me say my experience in working with entrepreneurs. About 90% of the entrepreneurs I have seen who are in the early stages of getting their product put together, that is the most vexing question for them. Okay? They will either say everyone, everyone is my customer, or they'll say, I don't know who my customer is. And let me just clarify, everyone means I don't know who my customer is. Okay? Because I guarantee you, not everyone wants your product. Okay? And the process of communicating a message to everyone about your product is the hardest thing in the world to do. Okay? Not even Coca-Cola, Coke, can claim that they can universally address everyone with their product, even though everybody knows what their product is. Okay? Marketing to everyone is basically impossible. You need to be able to know who you're actually sending a message to. So, knowing who is your product's customer is the paramount question that everybody needs to have answered when you're an entrepreneur and when you're trying to get a product out there. So the next question is, what does your customer like about your product? You really want to know that, okay? And what you like about your product is not what your customer likes about your product. Okay? Just assume that's true. Okay? The second thing, what don't they like about your product? Okay? And equally, if not more important question for you to know the answer to. Okay? And then here's a great one. What would they want your product to do that it doesn't do right now? Okay? This is all about seeing your product from somebody else's perspective, somebody else's vision. And then, one of the questions that most people want to know first, I think we should want to know this answer last, is what are they willing to pay for your product? Okay? Make them really want your product before you find out how much they want to pay for it. It's much better from your overall business strategy perspective. Do these questions make sense to you? Any questions about this? So before we get much further, what I want to do is I want to introduce you to the Innovation Canvas. The Innovation Canvas is designed off of another canvas called the Business Model Canvas. Have any of you ever heard of the Business Model Canvas? No one? Couple? So, to me, after all my years of working in business, this is a bit of a revelation. Nothing really new here, except the fact that you take an entire business model and you shrink it down to something that you can put on one page. Okay? Name me anything that's in your business model, and I'll show you where it goes right here. Essentially, everything's there. Now the business model canvas is slightly different than this because of two boxes. Okay, we've modified two boxes on that, but otherwise, this is the business model canvas, and it's here to demonstrate how you can keep track of all of the things that are important for your product, once again, on one page that you can look at and you can keep everything organized. Now the numbers here represent essentially the sequence by which you would fill this out, or the sequence it's important to know these answers first. Okay. Now, you see, it starts over here with the customer need. What does the customer need, and how are you going to fulfill it? Okay. If you know what the customer needs, then you have a good idea as to your customer segment. Okay. Now, I told you most entrepreneurs, they don't start here. Guess where they start? 6, 4. 6 would be revenue streams. That's great. Okay, I'm going to make $100 million a year. How am I going to do that? So maybe they do start there. 4. Okay. So what's 4?
Your idea.
That's the
product.
flash of inspiration, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, boom, this is what it is. So what happens when you get this flash of inspiration?
What happens once you get it?
Yeah, what happens once you get it?
Try to hammer back the first 3.
Well, actually, if you're a normal inventor, you just go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper until you hammered out every little detail about that thing. Okay? And then what do? You go to somebody else, you go, look at it, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And people look at you like, what are you talking about? What have you just done? And then you explain it to them. Oh, it solves everything. So, what has just happened is that you've taken your idea, you've drilled that idea down, you've spent money, you've spent time, you've spent all of that. Do you know who your customer is? Your customer is you, right? I'm the customer, I'm the inventor, I made this for myself. And now you're trying to find somebody else who might want this. Okay, so to all my entrepreneur friends out there, to all the inventors out there who have a great idea, if you don't know who your customer is yet, stop. Take a step back and let's figure out, okay, who's the customer, and let's start working through that. All right, so we're going to go and we're going to talk a little bit about a few of these boxes right now, and then in our next course in 2 weeks, we're going to cover the next segment. So if you look at the overall business model canvas, what you'll see is that you start off with customer needs, customer segments, and value proposition. What those are, and that's kind of the high-level purview of why your product is going to be accepted in the market. Okay, that's what that's focused on. The rest of these boxes, well, product features, this is the one everybody knows and loves because this is the one that's talking about what your solution is. These other ones, customer relationships and channels, that's how you're going to address your customers with your product. Basically, how you're going to get your products to your customers and how you're going to treat your products. And then we have down at the bottom, we have our revenue streams, how we make money, and 7, which would be our cost structure, which is how we spend money. Okay? We want to make more money than we spend. And so all of these become related to the expenses that you have within your business. So next week's, or in 2 weeks, our course is going to go over basically the financials of your business and your business model. Today we're going to talk about how we properly structure and understand how our product is being received by the market. Okay, any questions on that? All right. So, customer needs. Our customer needs are focused on basically you look at it from two perspectives. It's what are the pains that our customers are feeling, or what are the desires or wants of our customer. Okay, it's kind of both ends of those spectrums. Knowing our customer's pain is really, really good because with our customer's pain, we can touch an emotional response to our customer. Okay? If somebody really, really, really hates to take out the garbage, that is a pain point. I hate to do that. Okay? They are emotionally going to respond to a product which helps fulfill that need. Our desires start to feed into that as well. Our desires to make more money, our desires to be more successful, our desires to be entertained. All of those are also things that tap into what customers want out of the products that they're receiving. It's basically how they justify the money that they're spending out. Okay, you want to fully tap into what are the things which are hitting pain points or points of desire for our customers, and those are the things that we want to do our best to describe. And the more perspectives you have from customers on what those things are, the better off you're going to be in fully defining your product segment, or your actual product that you're offering. Okay, so next we want to talk about our customer segment. Our customer segments is really how we define who our customer is. Now, very traditionally, we use all sorts of demographics for that. What is your age? What is your race? What is your sex? What groups do you belong to? What are your buying preferences? So, you hear about soccer moms. You hear about, I don't know. I mean,
millennials that are ruining everything.
Millennials that are ruining everything. I think that there are stereotypical segments that are out there, and they're often discussed. And how you define your customer segmentation is really up to you, but you want to have a very clear composite picture of what your customer segment looks like. Okay, down to, so I did a little bit of work with Procter & Gamble in my consulting business, and I know that before they started designing any product, they basically had a group of people that would get, and they would storyboard out who their customer segment is. They literally had people who would go through magazines, well, now I'm dating myself. They'd go through magazines, cut out magazine pictures, post them on a poster board, and they would literally talk through, okay, this is the customer, this is what they want, this is why Tide makes them feel good at the end of the day, and everything else. So that sort of composite picture for you as you're putting together your customer segment is very, very important. It makes it so that you can actually dig into the emotions of your customer and really, really address them in a way that is very, very intuitive, and it makes you feel like you're talking to them. What you want what you literally want is you want to have a message that when you say it, it's like the person says, what, are you like driving to work with me? You know, what's going on? How did you know that I have all of these problems and I have all these needs? And that's the way you do that, is you clearly define that. So we really do want a niche. You want a clearly defined niche of a demographic of your customer segment. When you don't have that niche, it becomes very, very hard for you to message and get the emotional response that you're looking for. Okay. So the next segment we want to talk about is the value proposition. So the value proposition is by far the most important piece of the entire canvas here. Okay. Of all these boxes, the one that is most important for you is this one right here. Why do you think that's the most important box to understand?
So that's how you're going to generate the value that investors will want to have part of.
So it helps you with talking to investors, but it's not just investors.
Customers.
It's your customers. It's the people who want to buy. I mean, this is the essence of what you're putting out.
Is this like your message and your value proposition?
This is your message. This is the essence of what your product is to the market.
It's kind of like the bait on the hook, to say.
It's the bait on the hook.
Where's
Yep.
The why.
It's the why. I mean, I think of like Nike. Just do it, right? That's a very weird sort of value proposition, but it's something that speaks to people, right? It's like, oh, that's their value proposition. Is, you know, and what does that have to do with sneakers, right? Or tennis shoes or whatever we call these things, right?
Kicks.
Kicks.
That's my contribution.
So the value proposition is the main thing that we're trying to distill out of that. What we're trying to do is say, okay, I understand who my customer is. I understand what my customer needs. Now, how do I speak to them in a way that I am triggering an emotional and logical response that they just say, shut up and take my money.
Orland, getting back to customer segment, so I'm a young entrepreneur and I've got this great idea, but you're advising me to find out what the customer needs would be if I'm going to continue to develop the product. And then we get into the customer segments. If I'm looking for funding before I get to the value proposition to get more funding, what are your recommendations as far as the customer segment? I mean, you talk about Procter & Gamble spending days on storyboards, and do you have any advice to that? I mean, where's that money going to come from? It's like, I've got a great idea, I've hammered out the idea, I've developed the product, but I need a professional to help me figure out whether or not there's any customer, if there's truly a customer need or a customer segment, and how to define that.
Okay, so we're going to talk about in just this little bit what it takes to find this out. And the thing is that as an entrepreneur, you don't need to hire this out. You don't need to hire this out. As a matter of fact, I'd recommend that you don't hire it out. You as the entrepreneur need to take ownership of it, and we'll talk about the steps that we do to make that happen. You need fund. If you need funding, you got a product idea and you don't know who your customer is,
Good luck.
Nobody's going to give you funding. You know, I mean, because the first thing an investor is going to do is they're going to say, all right, how many of these are you going to sell? And And you could say, well, I'm gonna sell 100,000 of these things, right? And then the next thing any smart investor will do, will say, well, to who? What's your plan for doing that? And if your plan is a miracle happens and these all get sold, the investor's gonna sniff that out and realize that you don't know how you are going to market to or sell to your customer. Okay? So if you've got a product, you don't know who the customer is, you don't know how to emotionally tie into generate a value proposition, what you need to do is stop spending money on your product and take a couple weeks and figure out who your customer is, figure out what your customer needs, and figure out all the things that you got wrong in the product because it's not addressing the market. Okay. Great question. Any other questions? I just told you this is the most important thing. There must be some questions.
The one thing I was thinking about is you create a product, and there's a reason why you created it. And sometimes it's based on your own personal need and interest. But as we talk about looking at segment marketing, for example, we might look at, say, dance teams, young girls. But what is needed today may not be the same need for a future generation. So when you talk about value propositions, those could change with generation. So just because you have stalwart proposition for today, that might run a course of 10 years if you're lucky, but it could change.
Right. Well, I think one of the things you'll notice in the market today and in the market in general is that companies that refuse to keep in touch with their customers lose customers. I mean, it's kind of generally seen. How many kind of stalwart products out there that have said, I don't have to invest in keeping in touch with my customers. I don't have to do that. How many of them are still around? They're not. They get overcome because entrepreneurs are smart. They see where the market isn't responding to what the actual market needs, and then they introduce new products that do that. So this technique isn't just important for the new starting entrepreneur, but it's also important for the existing business, because this is a way that they can also keep in touch and keep innovating and keep providing needs for the market. What's great is if you're already in touch with a market segment, with a customer segment, and you're seeing what their pain points are, and you're introducing products that touch on those things. Okay. Now I've talked a lot about the entrepreneur and the inventor who gets that flash of inspiration, and what do they do? Well, what they have to do is recognize that they did get a stroke of inspiration. They did get that flash. They just have to go back and say, what were the pain points that caused that solution to be important, and who are the types of people who have those pain points? So there definitely is a way to get there. You just have to work your way backwards to it, which is, what are the pain points that this is addressing, and who are the people who have those pain points? And what's probably going to happen is you're going to work your way backwards and go, oh, that doesn't give me a clean demographic to work with. It doesn't give me a clean customer segment. So I have to now pick a customer segment, find out what their specific needs are, and then adjust my product to meet those needs. Okay, and that's why there's some adjustment that's probably going to be necessary in the product. Does that make sense? So there's always a way to make it work, and I don't want to discourage anybody from, pursuing their dream and how to make that work. You just have to recognize that your product needs to actually be sold to somebody, and you've got to figure out a way to make that happen. And the sooner you figure out how you are addressing customer needs, the better you're going to be able to make your product. Which is why defining your product features comes after you define your value proposition. So figure out what your value proposition is, and then put your feature set to fulfill your value proposition. Does that all make sense? All right. I think I just covered this next slide. So we've talked about the two different approaches. Either you go with the product first, I know what the product is, and now you've got to work your way backwards. So that can be very expensive and sometimes very frustrating if you've already put a lot of time into developing the product. So the recommendation is you got that flash of inspiration, immediately start working your way backwards, figure out who your customer is, figure out what the needs are, and then get your value proposition lined up. That will help you so that you're not spending a lot of time in development and then having to readjust on that. Now, if you really understand a particular customer segment and you understand their pain, you can come up with a solution that really addresses that. Just be aware that you may have a solution that could be anything. Okay, if your skill sets are over here, you could have a solution that's over here. You can often run into the problem where, you know, the old saying, when your only tool is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. You know? and you may be forcing your particular bent on how solutions should be to be what you're addressing for that problem. So just be aware of your own biases as you get into that. Questions?
I do have one question I want to back up, and that is, you mentioned when you develop something, be careful of your own biases, because you might think it's great, but it really isn't. So how do you really know that how do you identify that customer, that pain and that desire? Because typically, at any flash of inspiration I have, it's something because of a problem that I'm facing that spawns that, or something I see, a way to fix it. So it's kind of a creative mind and kind of a curious mind. But how do I know how this is going to react to the population or the customer?
Okay, so now you're leading me, so that's great.
Okay.
I think I have one more
You
slide.
slipped him a $20 bill.
Yeah.
I think I have one more.
happens you ask.
I just want the pizza afterwards.
I think I have one more slide and I'll come.
Okay.
All right. So what do you do now? This is my basic advice. Got this canvas. What you want to do is you want to start filling this out. Okay, so let me see. I'm looking for something to write with. So all right, you're going down and somebody got a product idea that we can play with
Off camera.
off camera.
I've got one.
Okay.
So I was thinking you always need a hype guy. So I was thinking of making like a button that when you press it, it just shouts hype or some hype noise. Kind of like the Staples Easy button. So
Okay.
Like an encourager or something?
yeah, like so you always have a hype guy, so you can always be a hype guy.
You can do it.
Yeah.
What do you call it?
Hype button.
All right.
You just described
So what are the needs for that?
Emotional validation.
To motivate,
Encourage me.
to lighten the room.
Okay, who's the customer?
Everyone.
College students. College students.
Offices, business people,
Okay. Office workers?
Somebody that just got ripped away from their parents for the first time. So the college students, like
Yeah,
first year college students.
coaches?
teachers.
Summer camp.
Anyone in sales?
Sales, yeah, good one.
All right, so what's the value proposition?
Emotional validation. You don't have to write it down if you don't think it's a good idea. He's validating me right now.
You go for
I
a
was
second.
thinking it reinforces your desire to succeed.
Okay. It makes you successful?
Provide some amusement.
It's like helps with depression. It's for friends. And it's a medical, it's
Makes you smile, imagery.
All right. So,
Happy.
I mean, we just threw out an idea and we started popping this down, okay? And the thing is you can keep going through all of this and you can go, how do I make this happen? Okay? My advice is to literally do that for your own product, okay? Grab this piece of paper, start jotting it down. Maybe make a couple copies before you start doing that. And we'll have this available on our website, a PDF version of this. TranscendInnovations.com. So the thing is that you can just brain dump right onto this and kind of put your whole business plan. What you'll see is you'll see what you haven't thought of, and you'll see what you have thought of, and you'll see that there's probably a lot of this stuff that you're going to look at as questionable. Okay? My recommendation to you is assume everything is questionable. Assume you didn't know anything when you put it down. Okay? And I'm not joking. Assume you didn't know anything when you put it down. Even if you were the expert dropping it on the page. Okay? And why is that? Why do I want you to assume that you didn't know anything?
It's your idea, you're inherently biased towards its potential success. And then you're coming at this from a siloed or a pigeonholed or a tainted perspective. That, and from your perspective, if you're to mass produce from your perspective, it might very well be successful. But why automatically assume that your flash in the pan or your bolt of thought, or however cool way you said it,
Right.
is going to be adopted on the market?
That's right. So you're trying to figure out what you got right and what you didn't get right. And if you assume that you got these 5 things right, chances are you're not going to ask any questions about those. Okay? You're just going to say, oh, I don't have to worry about those. But the thing is that you have to worry about everything that you put on the paper. Everything you put on the paper, you're going to want to worry about. So what are we going to do? Okay? It's time now to start talking to people. Okay? So this is getting back to your question. How do I find out what I know and what I don't know? How do I make that happen? Well, we talk to people. Okay? We're trying to get out of your head and getting into other people's head. So I say make this easy on yourself. Okay? Now maybe maybe you pick a customer segment, which is somebody that you don't know. You know, I mean, if you started off and said, I want to address something with kids in Africa, and that's my market segment that I'm going with, and you don't know any kids in Africa, this might be a hard thing to do. Most people start off with something that they know about, which means that they're surrounded by people that know something about that, which are potential customers. So start with your friends, your family, people that you know, and people that are going to make it easy on you to share your idea. Let me talk about one thing that I didn't put in the presentation, which is usually one of the biggest stumbling blocks that people have. Okay, and that's this. They go, I have an idea. If I share my idea, somebody's going to steal it. Okay, how many people think that's true?
Depends on who you're talking to. If they're highly motivated, perhaps.
Okay, so you have this idea and you think it is awesome, right? And how long have you had that idea that you think is awesome? I've met people who it's been a day, more likely it's been years, okay? Why is that idea not filling your pants full of money?
Somebody else
You
thought
didn't-
about
You
it.
didn't talk to anyone? Why is it not filling
It's
your pants
really
full of
hard
money?
to make a product and get it to market.
Because it's really hard to make it happen. Okay? I think that everyone, and I'm talking to all my entrepreneur and inventor friends out there, your idea, you couldn't give it away. Okay? You couldn't pay somebody to take it and turn it into a product. But if you pay them enough, they do it.
Try it.
But the point is that sharing your ideas with people, nobody's going to steal it, okay? And it comes down to one very key reason, is that people only steal when they can turn it around and get good value for what they just stole.
It takes a lot of money.
Okay. Don't be worried about talking about your idea with anyone. People aren't going to steal it, especially with what's going on, or with people who you're close to starting off with. The only time people are really going to be a threat to you is if you've now demonstrated that this is a commercially viable product by actually making money with it. Okay, so we are way early in the game with this. So to start with people you're close to. As you start interviewing people, just simply ask them, who else should I talk to? Okay? It is a very low stress way to just get out there and get talking to people. Normally people are very receptive to being asked some questions, and it should be a fairly fun and entertaining thing for your potential customers, people you're talking to. You can also network through social groups to find that, whether it be church, whether it be sports clubs, whether it be whatever, wherever you hang out. Look for places, or look for target markets where you can get into. You know, like if you're targeting college students and you don't know any college students, you can go to the university, you can start asking around, and normally you can find somebody who will work with you. And just be bold. You know, entrepreneurs are people who are breaking social norms by definition, and so look for ways that you can break social norms. So anyway, I mean, I know one guy who, they were looking to do some research on a medical product and having trouble getting into doctors. They literally just walked into a clinic and walked into the back and wanted to talk to the doctor. Didn't ask anybody if they could do it or not. So, and you'd be surprised how the staff could just nonchalantly not even know that something just happened. So anyway, that's how you can get some interviews set up. For the actual so let's talk about what the interview is, what you're trying to do. And really what you're trying to do from the interview is to see your product from somebody else's perspective. That's what you're trying to do. So this is an opportunity for you to talk to somebody and not to convince them why your product is great, but to try and see how they view your product. Okay? So getting them to be as open and as free as they can be in sharing their perspective is exactly what you want. You want to be listening to them. Okay? Listen to what they say. Listen to how they physically react to the product that you're putting in front of them. Okay? Don't argue. Okay? Don't tell them they're wrong. Don't tell them that they're stupid, that they can't see things the way you see them. Okay? You want them to be able to speak freely and to say exactly what they think. Okay? But you can collaborate with them on a solution.
What about when, maybe it's not as much idea-based, but, where you hear the psychology of a person where you're going to take this bold step and then they, because you're being entrepreneurial, they're like, I don't know, you could run into all these things, so they try to bring you down to their level. I mean, do you think that applies to a product also, or a product idea? It's like, I'm gonna go be an entrepreneur. Well, don't do that because you could run out of money or it could cause a divorce, or, do you think, or,
So, they're obviously at that point,
a detractor.
they are no longer trying to give you a perspective of the product. They are just trying to give you a perspective of your life choice. And I don't know that you need to be disrespectful, but I don't know that you need to pay any attention to what they're saying either. Right? As an entrepreneur, you will find out that many people will disagree with your choice and what you're trying to do.
But not related to the product that you might be interviewing them about.
Right. The idea is that you want them to provide their commentary on the product. So if it's a water bottle in front of them, say, here's the water bottle, what do you think? Drink the water, do you like the water, do you not like the water? What don't you like about it?
Yeah.
What do you like about it? If you don't think I should be selling water bottles, I'm sorry, that's what I'm doing. Is there something about the product that you think doesn't work? Just focus the attention. And, I think if that may be the downside of having families start with it because they're like, but at least with family, you can speak a little more freely as well. So you can counter that and make that happen.
But the good thing is that you take all that information because you don't have a product, you're not risking anything.
Right.
I think that's, we're not at day 12, we're at day 1. We're just trying to explore if there's feasibility for this or any.
That's right.
So, because
That's right.
people kind of jump to the end, you're going to have to mortgage your house or.
You're
That's what I'm talking about, because this idea just crashed right here with my interviews.
That's right.
So.
It's just a simple interview. Hey, I got this product idea. What do you think? How's that going? Okay, but just recognize that the whole purpose of this isn't for you to sell the product to them. The purpose for this is for you to find out how somebody else perceives your product.
Hey, Roland, I just want to back you up on something that you said. though I'm a finance guy, I actually sat in the room and helped lead comparable interviews as to what we're discussing. And I've interviewed over 6,000 people on different product ideas. It's such a wasted opportunity, and I've seen this so many times. It's such a wasted opportunity when the entrepreneur or the would-be entrepreneur sees that you as the person being interviewed don't see the full scope of the product features, for example. And rather than listening, rather than say I'm the entrepreneur, rather than actually listening to you and maybe keying in that, hey, maybe it's not designed such that the product features and therefore the value proposition is obvious, maybe ding, ding, ding. I then sit there and argue with you so that you see what the product features are.
Yeah.
No, well, don't you understand that if, you know, the lid does this and that's cool, right? Well, so? No, it does this. You flip the lid like that, right? So my point is that I've seen a lot of money wasted in market research with entrepreneurs that are so focused on spewing their image of the product or their interpretation of the product onto you to where the product is going to fail. I mean, I've seen it happen a lot. So, and now there's a big difference between just making sure that you take time to explain the product features, you know, or if they don't understand it and they ask questions, or if they ask a question, well, why didn't you do it like this, for example? Why didn't you turn left rather than instead you turn right here? Walking through that logically with the customer, that's not, in my opinion, considered arguing, and that's not what you're suggesting it is. But just don't get your ego in front of what you're trying to accomplish.
You'll probably find out early on that you don't know how to explain your product to somebody else. And that's the other thing that you're going to get out of this, is you're going to get an opportunity to practice how you explain your product to somebody. And that's also valuable. All right, so conducting the interview. Few pointers here. First of all, use your time wisely. You're going to set up an interview. You're going to say it's going to be this long. Honor that with the person that you're working with. If it looks like it's going to take more time than you thought, then ask the person if you can take more time. Don't just hold them hostage. And in the same light, make sure that you've planned enough time up front for conducting that. So you'll need to explain the purpose of the interview to the person, so make sure that they know that this isn't a bait and switch, this isn't a hey, I brought you here to get your feedback, but I'm really planning to turn this into a sales pitch, and then you're going to see at the end, I'm going to maybe contradict myself, but honor that this isn't a bona fide sales pitch. This is merely an understanding of somebody else's perspective relative to the product. So you'll have a little bit of time to describe the product. You have to describe the product because you can't have a meaningful discussion unless you do that. So describe your product as best you can. Use feedback, use visuals, pictures, whatever. It could be a sketch, it could be whatever. Just give them a sense of this is what the product is, and this is what it's trying to address. And then ask for feedback and listen. Okay, let them talk. Now, you're going to want to ask some additional questions, and that's where your canvas comes in place, right? You're going to take your canvas and you're going to say, okay, these are the points that I need to understand their perspective on those things. So, do you really need emotional validation?
No.
Okay.
That was a joke. Good idea. Do you need chances to light it up? So take your canvas, use that as a guide for the questions that you need to ask to get their perspective.
and then ask, and then make sure for sure that you're getting information on the customer needs and the value proposition. Do they buy into that? Does the value proposition work for them or not? Well, how would they change that? The other thing that you're going to want to start asking is, what do you think the value of this? How much money would you spend for this, the way it's currently packaged? Let them offer up a price. Don't give them a price and say, do you think that's a fair price? Just say, hey, what would you pay for this? And let them answer. And maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. One thing I'd also offer is to is if they say, yeah, I'd pay $100 for this, whatever it is, and say, would you pre-order it right now? And we ask that question for one very specific reason. Not because we're trying to get their money. We'll take the money if they give it to us, right? But what we're trying to do is we're trying to validate that price point that they just put down. Okay? If somebody's been really excited about a product, I really like this product, I would really love to have this product, and you ask, how much would you pay for it? $100, and you say, okay, would you write a check for me for $100 and give it to me right now, and you can have it as soon as it's ready? I won't cash it until then. I just want to know if I can take that as a kind of a promise that you're going to buy this. All of a sudden that changes their commitment level, because 100 hypothetical dollars and 100 real dollars are two different things. So it's an opportunity for you to validate that actually is something that they would want to do. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
Questions?
I've already out there. Would you ask them like how much they currently spend on something, and if they would pay more for this, or would they wouldn't pay more for that? Like,
I'd still let them offer the first valuation. Ask them, what would you pay for this? And see how they benchmark themselves with your product versus what's already out there. And then you can start asking questions, follow-on questions like, okay, you just said that you'd pay the same price for this as what's currently out there. Is there anything that I could do which would make it so that you would want my product more than that product, and you would even want to spend more for that?
okay, so you ask them for the benchmark, and then you see if you get more value out of that, or it's comparable to something else out there.
Right. I mean, one of the things is that we think that people's valuation is kind of universal, right? I mean, because you go to the store and there's things that you just know they cost $2, and that's what they cost. Or you go and but really, one person may think that that's so valuable that I would pay $10 for, but I get to pay $2 for it, and so I do it all the time. But really, your benchmark for the value is right there. And there's other people who they think their valuation is much less, and they don't buy that because they don't think that it's worth that. And so what you're trying to do is kind of get that curve, or where are most people? How does that line up with other people's sensibility? And you can start designing your prices so that, hey, I know I'm going to sell less if I charge more for it, but I'm happy with making fewer and charging more than trying to make it at a price point that meets everybody's needs, and it just costs too much for me to develop to make that.
I have a point or a question with the price points, because that's a really tough one, because you're going into yet another segment of socioeconomic because I might make 50,000 and say, hey, $10. Someone might make 100,000 and they want to pay $100. And so it can kind of skew based on, you're looking at the same market of people. But within that market, say, those that are avid sports lovers, you've got different markets within that field, so based on economics. And so I guess one thing that I'm kind of learning from this is don't rush the end, because right now you're still gathering, and you're working on your canvas. I like the term canvas, because that means you're continuously drawing, you're continuously massaging,
Yep.
versus just having a finished product. And when you get done, then you will know and be able to present to like your investors, because you'll have that data that's not biased on my wanting us to push this, but really, really going through this process, this methodology. So anyway.
Right, yeah. And it's interesting because what people make and what people spend
Yeah,
don't always
exactly, you're
correlate.
right. Yeah, you're
You know,
totally
like-
right.
Like, for me, buying a subscription to Spotify, spending $10 a month on Spotify is something that I'm like, yeah, I don't really like that. But every one of my kids who make far less than I do have subscriptions to Spotify, right? and so,
Excellent point.
so you just get weird sort of stratifications that happen, where people who have lower incomes may spend way more on some items than people who have gigantic incomes, and
I think that goes back to that value that you talked about, which I think is really important. I hadn't thought about it, pain and desire.
Mhm.
So no matter what you make, it depends if you hit that pain or desire, because
Right.
that now has a value
Mhm.
for them, because they see something benefit in their life
Right.
beyond their economics. So.
Mhm. All right, so once you finish the interview, there's some things to think about. One, document. Get your stuff down on paper. Get the results of the interview. Get it documented so that you have that to reference. It's actually going to mean big money to you as you go through this process, because now you have a record that you can go back to. And if you're talking to an investor and the investor's asking, so what's the market response to all this? You can actually pull out some reams of paper and say, hey, look, I've talked to all these people, this is what they said, this is the results for that. That actually means a lot. Investors do want to know, people who are going to finance do want to know that you've done this type of research. This is becoming more and more popular. Investors do know about canvases, they do know about the business model canvas, they do know about this approach, and so you want to be able to get that down. Look at each interview as a step towards a better product offering. Okay, you're narrowing down your message, you're putting together a product which is going to be better received in the market, and you're going to know that it's going to be better received in the market because you're going to talk to a big enough people. As your assumptions get validated, and as they get tweaked, make sure you're changing your canvas to match that. So if you found out that college students really aren't the right person for this market, cross them off the list, or say, well, it's really this segment of college students that really are interested in this.
So the college students' moms.
So the magic number is you want to get in the neighborhood of 50 interviews, and you can go upwards of 200-300 interviews for your product, depending on your product and depending on how much iteration that you've done. What you want to do is get to the point where you've had a solid 50 interviews and a good majority of those said, hey, I like your product, I'm willing to do it, and it's looking like a price point that people are starting to agree upon. And then you want to get to where the value proposition that you have is something that's resonating with those people. So that's kind of the rule of thumb that you're trying to get to is trying to get to that magic number of about 50. And you want 50 who have seen the same sort of value proposition and who are all going, yep, I got it, that works for me.
And so is that people that you think are part of your customer segments, or do you kind of want to do a shotgun where you're getting people that you think might not like this, but it's only because you're not them and they could see value in it where you're totally missing the market segment?
I'd say look for about 50 in a particular customer segment. Okay, what you're trying to do, the words are statistically valid. You want a statistically valid population that lets you know that you can now extrapolate that population to a much larger population and have a good chance of success within that. So that's where the number 50 kind of plays in. So you'll pull that all together, and that then gives you at least a bit of a warm and fuzzy that moving forward with this product will actually yield some success. And now you can have a lot more confidence in laying out either your own cash or getting somebody else to put some cash into your business to move it forward. All right, any questions regarding what we covered today?
Maybe just an additional comment. I frequently do guest lectures at a relatively local university in their entrepreneurial development certificate program. I usually go in and talk about the cost structure and the finance side. But I go in, I talk with the groups. There's usually 5 to 10 groups per class session that I sit in, and there's usually 5 to 10 people per group. And I ask them, okay, now just tell me about your product. And then I hone in a little bit deeper and I say, tell me about your value proposition. And one of the biggest confusions that I'm seeing that they're facing is that they will typically mix up value propositions with product features, right? You don't want to be like, I mean, for example, there was a guy, let's just say that he was developing a new type of toaster, right? A toaster already exists. This wasn't a real product. I just don't want to talk about it because he's probably going to watch this later. The toaster already exists, but he's wanting to create a new type of toaster, and this toaster has a beautiful, bulletproof casing on it or something like that, right? And I say, what's your value proposition? Oh, well, it's got a bulletproof casing on it. Well, that's a differentiator. And so what is it that you're really selling? So you're trying to sell a toaster for $45 when the average toaster you can get for $20. What's the real value proposition that you're selling? Oh, well, you could drop it out of an airplane and it won't break. You're literally never going to drop a toaster out of an airplane. So why are you asking someone to pay marginally 100+% as compared to the next best alternative? And ultimately what it came down to is they were selling ego. They were selling vanity. They were selling relative disproportionalism. You know what I mean?
My toaster can beat up your toaster.
Right. And if that's important to you, then you're willing to pay that 100+% premium.
Yeah.
And it ended up that in his specific industry or that specific product, price differentiators for purpose of ego is a big deal, right?
Hence William and Sonoma.
Right. I mean, slap a fancy looking sticker on it and times it by 2 and
It's an apple.
snob theory of economics, right? So, but my point is that he was so fixated on selling the product features that he was missing the greater scope of what he was truly selling. So, as you're going through and doing this, don't fall into the temptation of selling product features in the place of the value proposition.
All right. So to wrap this up, I wanted to talk a little bit about how we're going to be judging the entries for Tech Tank Ogden. From our perspective, what we're looking for is the best business idea that's coming out. And what that means is the one that looks like it will be most likely to succeed, generate the best ROI, will generate the most jobs, whatever. It's not just the emotional response that we're looking for. So there's 3 primary criteria. The first one, which is largely what we just covered today, which is market acceptance. So have you done the interviews? How many interviews have you done? What's the customer reaction to the product? Are you pivoting? Are you adjusting your product offering to address the market acceptance needs? Second one is the business plan financials. Essentially, how does this look financially? Is it going to be a profitable business? How long will it take to be profitable? What kind of ROI will the business projected to have? And then the third will be your technical feasibility, which is basically how much risk is associated within the development and marketing of that product. Are you going to have huge obstacles to overcome? If so, do you have good plans for addressing those, or have you considered that? So we're super excited to be a part of bringing this event, and we're hopeful that not just one, but all of our contestants will end up coming out of this with profitable businesses that help turn around our economy. And so thank you all for attending, and have a good night. Hey everyone, thanks for being a part of this. If you enjoyed this, please like it and subscribe to our channel. And if you have any comments, we'll be happy to address those. Thanks.